Kevin is a highly credentialed project manager who is active within both PMI and the IPMA. He has won numerous awards, is a prolific author, and teaches project management at several universities. Both Canadian and United Kingdom Project Management Associations have named him as an honorary fellow in recognition of his give back to the profession, and in 2023, he was knighted in the Order of St. Stanislaus in recognition of his charitable work in the international community.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Lena. That's great. I'd love to get started now. I'm going to start my presentation on 2 project management standards battled out in Canada. Project managers are rightfully confused. We have 2 PM standards battling it out, and many are struggling with determining which is the best or which one we should learn. I'm here today to try and clear up some of this confusion. Okay. The first is the Guide to the Project Management Body of Knowledge, or the PMBoK guide, published by the Project Management Institute, or PMI. And if you don't know, PMI is a US-based nonprofit organization that's expanded itself with chapters around the world. The current edition of the PMBoK guide is version 7, and it was released in January 2021. It's PMI's current view of what topics a good PM should know and what skills they should possess. It is part, but only part, of the reference material upon which the Project Management Professional, or PMP exam, is based. The PMP exam content outline published by PMI is its official document indicating what subject is being tested on the exam, and the PMBoK guide is only one source of content for those exam questions. Another is the PMI Standards Plus repository, as well as other reference materials. So to be clear, the PMP exam is not just based on the PMBoK guide, contrary to popular belief, and it's primarily a knowledge-based assessment. The second standard I want to talk about is the International Competence Baseline, or ICB, published by the International Project Management Association, or IPMA. IPMA is an international umbrella organization whose members are other national project management associations who come together to set international standards. Currently, there are 70+ countries participating. It was formed a couple of years before PMI and is a big deal internationally, though it's not well known in North America, in PMI's backyard. PMI used to be a member of IPMA, but it has since separated itself from them and is now competing with them internationally. Their standard, the ICB, forms the basis for IPMA's 4-level certification system, which includes both knowledge and competence-based certifications. And if you want to hear more about that, look at the recording of the 2022 International PM Day celebrations on our YouTube channel, on the PMAC YouTube channel, for a presentation titled Competence, What Employers Are Seeking, for a more detailed description of the difference between these two. In the ICB, the International Competence Baseline, IPMA's own approach to describing the project management body of knowledge, IPMA breaks down the knowledge and skills required to be a competent project manager into 3 basic areas. They talk about technical competencies. These are the PM-specific technical skills like scheduling and cost management and things like that. There's contextual competencies. And these are the business skills needed to understand how the project fits within the context of a business, a market, or industry. So maybe some legal awareness about contract law, some information about reading corporate financial statements, understanding the regulations in your industry. There's contextual competences that a PM needs to succeed in that industry. And then there's the third category, behavioral competences. These are the soft skills like leadership needed to work with stakeholders and teams to successfully deliver a project. While the PMBoK guide divides the PM technical skills into the 10 knowledge areas some of us know about, this IPMA model breaks down the entire range of skills through all 6 areas, while in version 3 of their standard into 46 competence elements. So it's quite a different level of breakdown and covering more stuff. It's a robust model that covers a broad range of knowledge and skills to be considered competent. Now, the ICB covers all of the PMBoK guide knowledge areas, plus 36 additional competencies not addressed by PMI in their standard, but which PMI admits are needed by competent project managers. IPMA's competence-based model is a little bit more comprehensive than PMI's knowledge-based model, but this is version 3 of their standard. A few years ago, oh, something else I wanted to talk about in between. I think did I miss a slide? Yeah, here we go. In 2015, IPMA updated their standard to version 4, which renamed the competence areas into people, practice, and perspective. They combined some of their competence elements, some other ones they broke down a little bit differently, but the general model remains intact, trying to provide a comprehensive view of all the skills and competencies needed to be a good project manager. Now, PMI also changed the PMBoK guide, right? So in 2021, PMI released version 7 of the PMBoK guide, the current version, which removes the knowledge areas from the publication into an online tool PMI calls Standards Plus, even though it's still good stuff to know for the exam, for the PMP exam, and questions are based on that content. It's been removed from the PMBoK guide and moved into this online repository and has instead replaced them with something PMI calls performance domains. Also, the standard strongly positions agile-like approaches to project management as equal alternatives to the more traditional project management approaches and in recognition of some of the changes going on in the project world. So extensively rewrote or restructured their standard. So we have these two competing standards that look very different and they're changing. So we have these two standards. They've changed a lot over the years. The PMBoK guide, first introduced in 1996, has seen multiple revisions, right, with clarifications, additions, such as adding a 10th stakeholder knowledge area in 2008, the business analysis content beefing up in 2013, Agile starting to really appear in 2017, and this complete restructuring of the whole model within the document in 2021. IPMA, the ICB that we heard about on the last presentation. This ICB was first introduced or not first introduced, the version we know has been introduced in 1999, version 3 that we've been talking about. And it was repackaged in 2015 as version 4 with, as I said, revised names for the competence areas and restructuring the competence elements a little bit. But these are only the two most well-known PM standards in the country. The International Standards Organization, or ISO, has been working diligently for many years to create many well-known standards, such as the ISO 9000 series of quality standards, many of you might be familiar with. Well, they also have been developing several project management standards, and these are starting to become better known in the workplace and the PM community. So while both IPMA and PMI have had some involvement over the years with the development of the ISO standards, IPMA's influence on them is a little bit stronger. So there's a number of competing standards that we need to juggle in our project management practice and be familiar with, both for our own professional development, right, and planning out what skills and competencies we want to build. Also understanding the standards against which our skills and knowledge will be assessed during certification exams, and even certain employers, companies, organizations will base their methodologies and processes on one or more of these standards. So we need to be familiar with the underlying baseline. So my argument isn't that we should know one of these and not the other, or one is better than the other. My argument is we should know all of them because they all have their strengths and weaknesses, and they all can affect how we perform in the workplace. So in the theme of this presentation, which is looking to the future for this entire conference, look for a new version of the PMBoK guide maybe in 2025 or 2026, because PMI, if you can see the pattern, seems to release a new version of this every 4 or 5 years or so, right? So we're getting up there. So 2025 will be, we're hitting 4 years. So sometime in 2025, 2026, I expect there to be another version of the PMBoK guide likely released. ISO standards are making some updates, and they're making more frequent appearances in our workplaces. So get familiar with them, learn what they talk about and how they impact organization. And there's also standards around several areas of project management, including PMOs and project governance. So we should become familiar with these. Also take the time to learn version 4 of the ICB. If you only know the PMBoK guide, you should learn the other view of this because it will fill in some holes in your knowledge or how you're planning to structure your training and development as a project manager. Learn the ICB, especially version 4. Um, it's a more fulsome picture of the skills and competencies that you need to develop throughout your PM career. And as a bonus, the IPMA version of their PMBoK guide, this ICB they call it, is free. So you can go to www.ipma.world, go into their publication section, and you can actually download the standard for free if that helps. So you can get the document, take a look at it, and start to grow your thinking on this. This was just a short presentation to sort of fill some holes in people's knowledge. I'm open to questions now if people have questions for me.
Hi, Kevin. It appears we have one question
Sure.
so far. Does the number of project management competencies seem excessive to you?
I don't think so because the difference is when PMI looks at the PMBoK guide, they specifically say in the opening section of it, to be a good project manager, you need to know a whole bunch of stuff. You need to have PM specific knowledge and skills. You need to have some general business contextual knowledge, and you need to have some soft skills and negotiation skills, leadership, things like that. Conflict management skills and emotional intelligence. You need all that stuff too. But then they say this guide will talk about the PM specific technical skills. So they focus on PM technical skills. The PMP assessment focuses on the technical skills, plus a little bit around ethics and stuff like that. It starts to grow out of it a little bit. But traditionally, it is mostly just focused on the technical skills. But if you understand to be a good PM, you could be the world's best scheduler, but if you have no people skills, if you're a robot with no emotions and no emotional intelligence, you're not going to be able to work very well with groups of people. The project, you're not going to inspire them and lead them, and it's all going to fall apart. In fact, PMI research that they published says that the vast majority of project success comes from these soft skills, these leadership skills. They rename them to power skills in the most recent version of their talent triangle. And PMI recognized you need all three areas. That's why they built this talent triangle model that talks about the soft skills, the leadership skills, the behaviors, the technical skills, and the business contextual skills. PMI has all three in their talent triangle. It's just the PMBoK guide focuses in one area, and the exam tends to focus mostly in that one area as well. So I don't think the number of elements is excessive because they're covering a lot of stuff, a lot of different skills and knowledge bits just within the people skills. The soft skills. There's like 11, I think, competence elements that you need to have, like in terms of negotiation skills is one. Conflict resolution is another. Right? There's lots of different elements in there, and it's easy to come up with 11. The PM skills, they break them down. Instead of the 10 knowledge areas that PMI has, they break them down more granularly into specific skills within that. There's not just one area called finance, financial management, cost management. It breaks it down into specific skills that you need to be able to have, right? Or just scheduling. Well, there's stuff within scheduling we can get more specific. So the IPMA model in the ICB is more granular, but it's roughly equivalent in that part. It just covers those contextual and behavioral skills as well. So I don't think it's excessive. I just think it's more granular. Yeah.
We
Good.
have another
More
question
questions?
here. Yeah. If you were a younger PM, where would you start when looking to build your knowledge?
Well, I think the answer is it depends because the I think the IPMA International Competence Baseline Standard gives you a broader view of all the stuff you need to develop. So I think you should learn that first because that set gives you the whole playing field. And you can do a bit of a self-assessment. IPMA provides self-assessment tools where you can sort of judge yourself. How you doing on this area, that area? And you can kind of score yourself and see where you're at to start with, and then develop a learning plan to help you move forward. So I think starting with the IPMA model is good from understanding the whole breadth of what you need to be, to be a good PM. However, we're in Canada or the US, most of us, and we're in PMI's backyard. And in this business world, business environment that we're working in, the IPMA model is largely not very well known. Our employers may know the PMBoK guide, they may know the PMI certifications, and that's what they're asking for when you're hitting the job market. So I think if you want to get a good job in project management right away in our culture, in our work environment, I think you got to know the PMI standard because that's maybe some of the early certifications you're going to get that your employers are asking for are probably going to be leaning towards PMI certifications. I'm not saying PMI certifications are better than IPMA certifications or vice versa. I'm just saying the reality of our Canadian and US job market is employers know about the PMI certifications and they're looking for those first, whether it's your CAPM or your PMP. That's probably where you're going to be starting working towards those. So you need to know the PMI standard as well. So I think the answer is both, but if you're only concerned about getting a job, the PMP might be the PMBoK guide might be the first one I'd read. But if I really want to be a good PM across a longer career, I might start with the international competence baseline to give me that bigger picture view, to help me plan out the training and what books I should be reading and what skills I should be working on developing.
Okay, we have another question from Carol. Where does the role of experience fit in?
Both certification paths, whether you're going through the IPMA path or the PMI path, require experience too. It's not just I got to memorize some stuff, right? The PMP, if you want to go write your PMP exam, requires a significant amount of PM related experience. PMI doesn't have to be the PM on a project, but you have to be doing project management type activities and you have to accumulate a few thousand hours of experience, a few years of experience working on projects before they'll let you write their exam. So they want you to have experience and some knowledge to write the PMP exam, right? The knowledge being, memorize some key stuff, not just from the PMBoK guide, but from these other reference materials that the exam content outline references. None of that experience, by the way, has to be successful experience. You could be the world's worst project manager and failed every project you've ever touched. But if you've accumulated that number of hours of experience, that would meet the requirement for you to write that exam. Now, hopefully, the exam might filter out those bad PMs. But there's a few people out there that I've seen with PMPs that I wouldn't want managing my projects. The IPMA model is a little bit different. They do a knowledge and a competence assessment. So there's at the bottom level, they have A, B, C, and D certifications. And maybe an E is in the works, but right now they have A, B, C, D. And D is the lowest level, D like dog, is the entry level into the IPMA world of certifications. And that is a knowledge-based test similar to the PMP exam. You need you need some experience. You need, to write the test, get in there. You need to know some stuff, and you answer a bunch of multiple choice questions and some short answer. And I think there's some short answer essay like questions. And based on that, they try to judge, do you know your stuff, right? And you can get certified at level D. To move on to level A, B, or C, though, they want to actually see if you're a good project manager. And that's a lot harder to do. It requires looking at your workplace performance. So they're actually going to ask you to write up a project report on one of your real projects, talk to some of your stakeholders to see what they thought about your performance on the project. They're going to ask you questions in an oral interview to probe at different parts of practices of project management, see how you actually did them and if you were following best practices. And while they're poking at you with those questions about your project, they're also looking for demonstration of the soft skills as well. Do you have emotional self-control? Are you able to be persuasive in your discussion? Can you, so they're looking for a demonstration. Do you have presentation skills? They're looking for those things while they're doing the interviews. So it's a more comprehensive assessment. It's looking at, are you good? Have you been successful? And are you likely to still be successful? From an employer's perspective, that's the one that I want to see in the candidates that I'm interviewing. but it's expensive to get that certification. It takes more time to invest in preparing for all those interviews and submitting all these packages and the evidence that you were doing good project management. So they're two different paths. They each have their pros and cons, right? You want to get a job fast. In the North American market, the PMP is probably your ticket to a fast job, right? There's a shortage of PMs and all the employers know what a PMP is and they're looking for it. If you want to have a longer, more nuanced career and move into the more senior levels of project management, I'd get into that IPMA path right away. It's not to say you can't start on the IPMA path. There's a starting entry into that as well. Similar to the PMP, you can start at the knowledge-based assessments and work your way up. But as you move your way up, they're expecting more and more experience and competence to be demonstrated.
We have one final question from Suzanne. Do you think that the project management certifications are being diluted with the number of people with certifications without the knowledge of all the competencies?
Um, I I'm a little bit disappointed with the quality of the project management community in general. When I got my when I got my PMP back in the 90s, it was hard. It was a big deal. There weren't many PMPs around, and it tended to be the more senior, skilled people that had them. It was a big deal to find somebody with a PMP. And it generally meant that's probably a really good project manager. There was the hockey stick curve in growth of PMP awardings or whatever by PMI over the years. There's like over 1 million PMPs out there. People that have gotten their PMP over the years, and so there's so many of them out in the marketplace. Naturally, with a population that size, there's going to be some good ones, some mediocre ones, and probably some bad ones, just because of the size of the population. And I think there's enough weaker PMs now or more junior PMs that have gotten their PMP that it doesn't carry the weight, it doesn't carry the prestige that it had at one time because it's just so common. I wouldn't want to say they're a dime a dozen, but you could put out a job application and get 300 applications. All of them have their PMP. Now, how do you figure out which are the good ones that you want to interview? Because you can't interview all 300. And that's when people are looking for something a little bit more. So so that's why people with PMPs are scrambling to get other certifications, get their change management certification, get an agile certification. They need to do something to stand out because the PMP is just sort of an entry level criteria now in the job market. I hope that answered the
Okay,
question.
I think so. We don't have any more questions. Thank you very much, Kevin, for your presentation.